by saying congratulations on this film. I had a chance to sit down and watch it last week, and it's a great horror film, so congratulations.
Thank you very much. That's very nice.
So, David, tell us a little bit about where did the idea first come about for Alive for you?
Oh, it's quite a long process of a significant amount of time. I think at first I wanted to do something that was contained as a horror because as a filmmaker and a writer, you can write whatever you want, but ultimately, if you go down this path where you start to think, I want to do something I can do within a reasonable budget, I'm going to need to write something quite simple and contained. So, uh, zombie horror movies are quite a nice genre to try to do that with because they've got a built-in audience, which is always something that works in your favor when you're an independent filmmaker. And it also allows you to have already a context that audiences are familiar with that has a lot of great dramatic tension, suspense, action, and you also get to skip a lot of exposition. So zombie drama was kind of the thing I gravitated towards.
Yeah.
And then I wrote a first version that was a bit more contained.
Depressing.
And then when my producer came on board, she thought it was a bit too dark, so we kind of reworked it, and it became what it is now.
Were you a fan of the zombie genre yourself growing up?
Yeah. I think it's a zombie that has. It's a zombie. Sorry, it's a genre that has stood the test of time because there's within what seems like a very rigid context, there are actually a lot of ways it can go. So there's always something really interesting in most zombies movies. There's always a new angle that you can be surprised by, and it goes both ways. It can be serious drama, suspense, horror. It can also go in comedy, romance direction. It can go all sorts of ways. So zombie movies, yeah, I really enjoy them.
One of the things that you said before about with zombie films is that there's a lot of creativity that you can do. There's also been a lot of zombie movies made over the years. How difficult was that for you to make a zombie film that hasn't had its story told before?
That's a good point. I think I was trying to explore kind of the small, cracks that people haven't gone through quite yet. I like to think that sometimes when I get inspiration for a movie, it's because I see something and then I realize, oh, that film could have gone in that direction. That might have been interesting, but it didn't. And then so I'm often trying to write the things I wish I was seeing on the screen that I'm not. And so that's where significant part of the inspiration came from.
Okay. Now, you were talking before about what you wanted to make a film that was very contained. Tell us a little bit about the shooting process of the film, because to look at the film, it doesn't look like a film that was that contained. You've got some great sequences in there. Tell us a little bit about what the shoot was like and how you went about doing those scenes that look more epic than a contained film.
Well, the truth is, as I was saying, when I first wrote the first version, it was extremely contained. It took place into just one building, and my producer thought that's a bit too contained. We could definitely expand it and make it a bit larger and a bit more epic, and it wouldn't be such a problem at the production level, so we went with that. The real challenge making the film was that we started shooting at the end of 2019, early 2020. And because we're an independent production, we were shooting on weekends, one weekend after the other, because most of the people on the cast and crew actually had day jobs.
Yep.
So one of the first things that was difficult is basically just trying to know what you've shot, what you haven't shot, and keep the continuity and the energy going when you're doing such a kind of broken shooting schedule. And then the pandemic hit, so we had to suspend filming for about 6 months. After that, we resumed filming in the summer of 2020. Then there were more lockdowns. We had to stop production again. So that the biggest challenge was just trying to keep going throughout that very extended shooting schedule, and that presented itself. And it presented itself with a lot of challenges. Particularly, there are scenes in the movie, and I hope it doesn't show, but some of the shots are done a year apart and in completely different locations. So keeping track of all this was quite a complicated task.
What was that 6 months like for you during the pandemic when you couldn't film? That must have been very difficult as a filmmaker. You must have been really wanting to get out there and keep working, but what did you do in that 6 months, and how did you cope with not being able to film during that time?
I mean, it wasn't just us. I think everybody was struggling to find out what life would just change during those times anyway, but it was difficult. We started just editing what we had shot, and that gave us a bit of time to figure out, maybe we need a pickup shot here, we need an extra shot there. So we started doing this, and then we were hopeful that in the summer we could film again. So we started looking for the locations that were missing, because we essentially went into production and we didn't have all the locations we needed when we started filming. But we thought that because it takes so long for the production to just carry on, we would find them as time passed, and eventually we kind of managed to do that.
Also, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the casting of the film as well, because you've got such an amazing cast that you put together here. How did you go about finding that cast, and how did you know when you had the right person for each role?
Well, my producer and I, we have a number of contacts in the industry. We auditioned a few people, but it's true, we are very fortunate to have some really, really great cast. Our lead, Ellen Hillman's absolutely brilliant, and she really, really elevated the material with an intensity that I wasn't even hoping for. So that was wonderful, and everybody else here was great. We're very lucky in that sense.
And how do you feel now that the film is about to come out? Like, are you nervous, or are you excited that finally the world will get to see the film that you've made?
Well, both, to be very honest. And no, it's great. It's great. We've been very fortunate at every step of the way, just finding the right people to make the film. The crew was excellent. We had Tom Allen, who was our director of photography, was wonderful, creating the look of the film. We had Rob Pepper, who did the sound design, who came on board very late and did a great work for us. Daniela Carata, who made the music, again, fantastic. And now we're really happy that all of this has come together and that it's being released.
Now, some of the people who have already watched the film are comparing it to 28 Days Later. How does that make you feel that your film is being compared to one of the films that's considered one of the best zombie films in the genre?
Well, I'll take that. That's a very, very nice thing to say. I mean, 28 Days Later is an absolutely fantastic film.
Definitely.
And in these days, I think it rejuvenated the genre to a great extent. And it's very difficult when you do a zombie movie today to not be kind of in the shadow of that film.
Yep.
Because it changed the way zombies were presented in a very, very great way. But I think again, it's what I was saying earlier, is that then you're in this kind of almost shared universe of zombies that people like, because it has such great dramatic potential. So that's good.
So, David, what next for you now as a filmmaker? Are you already starting to work on your next project? Or if people sit down and watch Alive and they want to see your next work, what can we expect from you next?
Well, we're developing a project now that's called The Devil's Workshop, which is also horror. It's essentially a haunted house movie. It's going to be a bit, I think, of a more light tone, and we're gonna try to subvert a few of the tropes of that also kind of very specific horror subgenre.
Awesome.
So that's at the we're at the developing stage right now. We're looking to financing and see how that's going to go. So it's going to be a while, but it's going to be eventually it will be there.
Awesome. Well, David, to finish off the interview, what would you like to say to people out there who are about to sit down and watch Alive when it comes out in the next few days?
Well, I sure hope they enjoyed. I hope it's going to find its space in the zombie genre as a film that does something a little different, that that is gonna show you a new angle of the zombie apocalypse that maybe they weren't prepared for. That's what I hope.